So it's looking like my biggest worry is happening with State of Decay 3, and we are not gonna see this for another year, even though we were hoping maybe against hope we could see a release date for State of Decay 3 this 2025, but it is looking like it could be longer than a year when we might see it. And I gotta say, I am not shocked and predicted this if we didn't see any news about State of Decay 3 this past January at the latest developer direct. Also, later in this video, guys, I have some new info not seen anywhere else that I've uncovered personally that I'm really excited to talk about. Stay tuned for that. But according to Jez Corden from Windows Central, this is the guy that broke the news early last year that we were going to see a State of Decay 3 trailer at the Xbox showcase from his sources, and he was on the money. He had this to say in one of the latest podcasts about when we might see State of Decay 3 come out. Check this out.
I've heard that State of Decay 3 could be launching in the first half of next year.
Okay.
So you don't want to launch Fable on top of State of Decay 3 because from what I've heard, State of Decay 3's could be a banger, you know, a serious banger.
So you're looking at State of Decay 3 in the first 6 months of next year, between like January and June, essentially.
That's what I've heard. So like, you know, take it as a podcast rumor and not a source report. I mean, well, obviously there's a source here, but.
So according to his source, he is hearing 2026 the first half. And I'm here to tell you that I think he is absolutely correct. And I have no source of my own, but this is just, you know, based on reading the tea leaves. And at this point, I would be shocked if we saw a game release this year, with really our only hope at this point is seeing a full new gameplay trailer at this year's Xbox showcase. And I have some guesses as to why that's the case, including a potential into the mindset of the developers from themselves that I'll share here in a second. Before I go further, I'm so proud because I have the coolest thing to show you guys today. Raycon is supporting the channel today at half the price of premium audio brands, but even more quality and bang for your buck. The crazy part is I've been using Raycon buds before they ever contacted me by gaming with these, listening to music, even editing on these for a few years. The biggest reason? Sound quality is top notch, right up there with premium brands. The Raycon everyday earbuds come with active noise cancellation, drowning out noise at the gym or at work or at home, plus comes with an amazing 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity. And this lets you switch between devices back and forth without hassles. Not only that, the thing that I'm most happy to tell you, if you don't like Raycon, they offer a 30-day happiness guarantee. That means if you don't like them, return them, no questions asked. That's how confident Raycon and I are that you guys are gonna like these buds. And go to buyraycon.com/sunnygames for a 20% discount on the everyday earbuds, the ones that I have right here. Support the channel if you're interested, and thanks to Raycon and thanks to you guys for all your support. Now, there's quite a few guesses as to why this is happening, and this is all speculation on my end. One, I quite frankly just think that they just need more time. It was reported from Undead Labs as of just 3 years ago that this game was in pre-production, not even full production. And I got that from the horse's mouth on this channel. Two, it's kind of like a corporation gaming politics thing that I won't go crazy with in this video, but essentially since Undead Labs and State of Decay 3 is a first-party title from Microsoft, they want to space their game releases in a way that makes sense. So think of State of Decay 3 and think of Fable. They're not going to want to release them too close together, so there's some politics involved. With that said, I think the majority of us, including myself, I'm guessing, I think we would all agree we don't want them to release this game in a bad state. To be quite frank with you guys, when State of Decay 2 first dropped, I actually played the game, I want to say maybe like a day or two, maybe a week, and that was because the game came out in such a hot mess before, you know, 25 updates came out later and they dropped the Plague Territory, and then I started making videos on the game because I loved the game so much. The game at that point was in such a good state, it really did keep me hooked, and I think that's what we want to see when State of Decay 3 first releases. So we're not going to want a repeat of the game dropping with a ton of bugs and just being in a lackluster state. At this point, the big thing we're all going to collectively watch for when it comes to State of Decay 3, especially since the studio has been pretty much dead silent since the last trailer dropped, is hopefully a new trailer coming this summer where I'm I'm praying we actually get to see some actual gameplay, maybe some more info in general, and maybe even a release window or a release date or release year, something that says that it's coming in 2026 at the very minimum. My actual prediction though on when we're actually going to see State of Decay 3, my guess is next year with a release date around February to April, with at the moment one big gameplay and deep dive right around January next year at the developer direct. So that's kind of the things that we're going to be watching for and kind of the milestones that we'll keep an eye out for. The final thing I actually want to show you guys is something really interesting that I found. This is probably nothing, but you guys know me. I put on my little detective hat and I just, any little thing I can find, I want to share it with you guys. Just some days ago, a guy made a Reddit post who said that he thinks the game won't be released until 2027. He went with some debunked info that I've debunked on this channel about a lady and her LinkedIn profile and the new Xbox consoles coming out in 2027 as for a reason why he thinks it's coming that year. And Brant Fitzgerald, an Undead Labs developer, responded, and I quote, "Nothing about this sounds right." So 2027 I don't think is the target date at all unless some crazy new delays happen. But hey, I'm gonna be honest, I thought 2026 might be way too far out until I barely saw any gameplay at the last trailer, so who knows, anything can happen. One quick side note, Brant Fitzgerald, the developer, seen here showing that game developers are indeed chick magnets and can bust moves like no other. He is one of the coolest human beings I've ever met. Shout out to Brant for being such a kind person to this very awkward guy last year when he met me. If you guys ever get a chance to meet him, he's really cool. Either way, let me know in the comments, are you guys bummed out it's going to be another year before we see the release of State of Decay 3? That's not confirmed, but more than likely that's what I'm guessing. That's what sources are saying. Are you guys like me and think though we should let them cook and take as long as they need? Let me know down below. With that, I actually have some new information that I found potentially revealing some insight on upcoming gameplay that I gotta say I'm excited about. I think you guys will be too. So about a month ago, Undead Labs listed a job for a senior combat designer, and I found new things that are really intriguing on here and maybe even a little telling. First part, and it comes from this one sentence, it says own and refine core gameplay systems including encounter spawning and infestation spread. And this is key because right before State of Decay 2 gave its final update, the developers were actually pushing for a more realistic spawning situation in State of Decay 2, but it actually had been said by the original developers themselves that this couldn't be done with the current code. But either way, they attempted anyways, and they were even in testing phases until they scratched it. I remember because I really wanted to test it out myself in the PTR, and this was all happening last year with State of Decay 2, and it makes sense because the way it works now, zombies just spawn kind of out of thin air and it's not realistic. One example I'm going to give you, if you made noise, let's say shooting up zombies, in theory in State of Decay 3 you will spawn Zeds that are camped or that are nearby you, and you can hear the noise and they'll come flocking to you. That makes sense, right? That's realistic. Versus what State of Decay 2 now, which is spawning zombies near you, but a lot just again just spawn out of thin air. Or when it's State of Decay 2, when you engage like a plague heart, again zombies spawn out of nowhere all the time, and it's one of the more annoying factors, and it kind of adds an extra set of difficulty on there because it's just infinitely spawning out of nowhere. Now they were attempting to fix this, but they couldn't ultimately. So what they are looking for essentially with this job listing is someone to help make this more fluid, which is going to be really great for gameplay. And going further, it says infestation spread, and I actually have to say that they did some good stuff with infestation spreading in State of Decay 2, even to the point where you can see on your map the zombies kind of making their way to a new location and it's spreading around, versus before it would just kind of happen off screen. But they are now looking to refine that even further, and I gotta say I'm really happy to see that because it's not something you see in zombie games, or at least not typically. Now one thing I always appreciate with State of Decay 2 as the game evolved with their updates is how I felt like their game plan with plague hearts and the infestation spreading was that their job was to destroy you at all costs, and it kind of gave them like a sense of being smart and pretty much on the mission to take you out, which I like. But it looks like with State of Decay 3, and even judging by the latest trailer where you see the plague is just spreading even more out of control and more insane, I expect that Undead Labs is going to take this to another level, and I gotta say that gets me really pumped. Now another thing I found within these job listings, not only with the senior combat designer job, but there is also an opening right now for a senior open world engineer. And on both listings, there is talk about enemy AI. For the senior combat designer, it says designing responsive strategic combat experiences from melee and range combat to enemy AI behaviors. And under the what we're looking for, it says AI combat mechanics. And then going further into the other job posting for the senior open world engineer, it says your work will power AI enemy behaviors, world simulation, and large scale systems that make our world feel alive. And I'm showing you this, guys, because if you've played State of Decay 2 at all, you know how bad NPCs and AI enemy behavior is. For me, it's so bad that when I personally played in Lethal, I never brought a companion, even though I wanted to, because they would easily get killed. Or when facing off against enemy AI and it's you against like a rival group, they would do the dumbest things and get themselves killed out in the open. And that's still a problem today with State of Decay 2. Well, the good thing is it looks like they are addressing this in full with these new hires, and finally with this like new game, they're looking to really tackle these mechanics and make them look good. And for me, all of this highlights that they are working on some of the things that were really big weaknesses with State of Decay 2. The zombie spawning was less than ideal, and the enemy AI or the companion AI was pretty awful to say the least, mixed in with the fact that they seem to largely want to add things that we've asked for in the past but couldn't due to the technical limitations. I'm honestly expecting a hell of a game just from the little things like this that I find, and I gotta say, it just gets me so psyched, dude. As I keep saying, I think we are set to see one of the best, if not the very best, I'm guessing the very best post-apocalyptic survival game we've ever seen. We're just gonna have to let them cook though, and we're gonna have to let them take their time, as it does look like we have a while before the game comes out. Either way, I am pretty stoked, and I hope you guys are as excited as I am the more info that we find.